Hi guys. I'm gonna bring in Umblam in a little while to get him to say something about names. But the preliminary is it's something that's really been toying with my sense of reality lately. I think about a week ago in a rapid succession, someone or different people called me either Mad or Max or Mars, and those are like it's very dramatic, but it's also kind of some kind of belligerent or bellicose energies that are brought forward with those names, and you can essentially call me whatever as long as you mean well, but it, it's just I'm also down here where my identity is trying to shift into being on the road, and that's a very interesting process, and of course also being in a strange language that I don't know too well, and constantly having to try to keep up with what's going on verbally. And at the same time, I'm doing a lot of private sessions and enjoying it a lot. But it's funny how people really enjoy, and I'm the same way. Having their guides named, and it's very interesting because, as you may know, essentially, there are no names in the fifth dimension and above, because everything, if you begin to sense things energetically, everything has its very own unique energetic signature, and therefore there's no need to have a name, because it just refers to the signature. So often the name they will assign is some sort of strange interplay between, well, the person they're interacting with, and the impression they want to give of who they are, and the vibration or the syllables put together, that this person will have the best time connecting with that entity through. I think it's quite beautiful, but it of course speaks to something essential about the way we humans perceive reality. And then I've had the strangest synchronicity going on down here, because you might remember I made a deal of the first place I lived was called what was it? El Cortijo de La Divina Pastora, and which means the farmhouse of the divine shepherd. And you know that the Spanish used to be more Catholic than the Pope, so everything is like named something with the blood of Jesus, or or something to that effect. But I like to follow these signs. And then this place, the guy who welcomed me here, and he's a very sweet guy, by the way, he was also named Jesus. And again, like, funny coincidence. And through a detour, I was brought to the cathedral as the bus stop that people explained me that I had to get off on. And then I thought, oh well, okay, you're probably just making things up, mess. And then go down and meet with Jesus. And then it turns out that he actually spoke a few phrases of Danish, because for some reason he took it as a voluntary course once, which is weird because essentially no one speaks Danish unless they're Danes. So that was that, like being guided by the Jesus. And then yesterday I met with a real estate agent to look at another apartment, and she introduced herself as Isa, and that's of course short for Isabel, which is a very Spanish girl's name. But then it hit me, and apparently Isa is what she goes by. It's also what when you text her on WhatsApp, that's her name. So but then it hit me that Isa is the Arabic name for Jesus. So I'm just like, what is this thing? And Arcturian Catholics, what's what's going on with Jesus? So I just like to try to get Umblam to explain something about what is it with humans and names, and how is it that these patterns are laid out, and what are we and what am I supposed to learn from it. So let's get him to comment, and hope you are well out there. Yes, 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 yes. Hello, friends. Yes, I am quite amused to be on the sideline of human affairs, not only with this individual that I'm coming through, but in general, we are having a lot of fun with humans and their shifts into the fifth dimension. See, it's this tightening of name patterns that you experience in your own amusing ways. It is the breadcrumbs that are laid out to the experience of the path connecting. That is, that when you enter into the fifth dimensional experience, some of the hallmarks are exactly that you feel the connection happening between apparently random things of your life. And it's this moving into the akashic or the energetic, this intuitive, sensory, higher mind perception that things are connected, that you are trying to show yourself in the ways your lives are orchestrated. And that's why you experience it that way. Because notice again that the technology that names adhere to or come from, rely on, is the technology of language itself. You don't necessarily think of it as a technology because you usually have this also rather mechanical conception that technology is you picking up a rock and a stick and then tying them together and then you have a spear and that's technology, or being able to bang some rocks together and get a fire going, and then from that fire you can do all kinds of things with smelting in weaponry and heating things in chemical processes. And but of course that requires that the fire turns into a Bunsen burner, but you have come far in that sense that you have learned to manipulate things in the outside world. But a prime medium that all these things move through is the medium of language. And we know this dear one is experiencing quite some confusion because we know he is actually intuitively able to sense what is going on for people in situations that he finds himself in, such as you all are. But that doesn't mean that there is this overlap of specific code that he relies upon and that has been taken from him in some sense by the orchestration of his environment shifting. And this can be a quite stirring experience for humans when they experience that the codes that they run on, the specific languages that they use to interact with the world normally, they're being replaced by something that is different in code and yet is used to convey the same basic human interactions and relationships. That's a funny thing, but it is a deep, deep technology that you operate on, and that is why it's so ingrained in human beings that the emotional reality conveyed in the vibrations of language, no matter what language you are speaking, is something that is apprehended on both a deeper and a higher level. It's funny how these two words go together now, by humans than the actual semantic content. So you began with song in that sense. You began when the great edifice of your body that had been created and its template brought into being through experiments in time. You began to use these specific altercations, such as your vocal cords, to produce vibrations that again produced effects emotionally and sensationally. And this was the beginning of song. And for a long time, human beings sang. They sang when they were sad, they sang when they were happy, they sang when they were angry, they sang when they were lustful, they sang when they were hungry. They sang in general to convey certain emotions and moods, to protect themselves. And to connect themselves to each other and to the natural world. And then songs became spells. You learned to cast things into being. You began to apprehend that you could bring forward emotions that were not present in song, and then you could use them to provoke an altercation in the future, setting a type of vibrational mood, and then seeing that mood come to be for another person that had been removed from this action. And that was the beginning of language, because you began to transfer different units from different either memories or apprehensions into this vibrational song, and began to break it down into words, and those words became transferable. You were able to carry them around, so you began storing them in this type of collective mental field where you could then retrieve them when you needed to in order to bring forward the things that you had displaced, so to speak, in your mind. This is the beginning of language. It's a very, very powerful technique, but it's also a technique that inevitably brings the felt presence of immediate experience into a type of invocation of either the past or the future, an apprehension of what you want to be. And thus it gave birth to what you may think of as grand desire, that sense of thirst that when you began to be able to manipulate the world, you were able to apprehend all the riches you were missing. And so you began to strive for control in order to satiate these fearful sentiments of lack. This is something that went on for a long time, and with the beginning of writing, it began to change to an even greater degree, and notice essentially the magic of the Egyptian scribes when they realized that even though they sat around all day, not really producing anything, they grew richer and fatter and lived more secure and well-nourished lives than the people who actually brought forward the foodstuffs. What magic that is, to be able to bring forward things that aren't there, to sit around making hieroglyphs of animals and then see your every need taken care of. If that is not magic, we don't know what is. And so we are reminded by the dear one we are coming through that he would like to know what is up with these names. See, the name is the personal invocation of a limited part of you. And so we bring forward that quote of who gave you that numb, because it is a numbing device to some degree. Whatever vibration is assigned to you, it is limited by the structural relationship to you that exists in your culture or wider society. That is, the name is, in a sense, a type of ready-made assignment you are being given to fit into a certain vibration. It is also something that is used to invoke your personality, make you attentive, call out your attention and bind it to whoever speaks your name. Therefore, a name is a very powerful thing. It is something that you usually irrevocably identify with. And if you don't, then you may do that trick of identity where you begin to call yourself something else, and then you are that person who was once named something and is now named something else. You cannot erase your names, even though you can play around with them to a great degree, and we highly encourage you to do that. And so it is possible for a human being to become the artist formerly known as Prince, and then still be known as both Prince and not Prince, and something of a strange hieroglyph himself. These are all types of magic, and we would actually encourage you to play around with the hieroglyph that is inscribed on the great plate sitting in your hearts. Inscribe on that the symbol that resonates deepest within you, and try to see what vibration is attached to this symbol, and there you will come closer to that sense of your holy name, that actual vibration that brought you forward. And then know that you have 1 and 1,000, 10,000, and no names. And even the name society gave you was a name that you chose to play around with from the point where you traveled into this world to have these experiences. It's quite joyful to play around with these things. And so the pattern, the thing that this dear one is reminding me that has been left unanswered is, why is Jesus calling him in name and in form? What is this synchronicity that is connected to his search for a home? And so, yes, I don't mean to offend him, but we do believe that he is usually able to figure these things out, because if he was brought into a home that was connected to that figure you call the Christ, but who also has many and had no names in his time, then it might be the fact that these two things are connected for him in his soul search. And there is a pattern here to be explored that reaches back into those days of apostolic tutelage, those days of persecution, of following, of denial and uncovering, of great sacrifice and an even greater love. These things await in this strange pattern of the Messiah and his disciples and the home that they found within as they went walking the earth to spread the good news. And so it is a joy for me, Umblam of the Arcturian Council, to also be able to bring you good news this day. And the good news is that you are waking up to this idea of yourself as eternally vibrating. And the names that you enjoy and the spells you use to invoke, they begin to seem to you more tools and playthings than wicked spells and limitations. And so the playfulness, it progresses eternally into an infinite field where everything is possible. With that, I leave you, and I leave you with my great love. Peace and blessings to you, sweet human beings.